And
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We're here with the cast and crew after the world premiere of The Brain That Wouldn't Die. Ooh, give yourselves a round of applause. It was such a fantastic film. Yay!
world premiere! World premiere!
Yeah. Wow, it was really such a fun film, and we were kind of surprised at how much of the original film had so much humor and you preserved that and built on it. What was the impetus behind what made you decide to remake this film? And then what things did you add or remove and why?
That's all Hank right there.
Why we decided on it, I thought it would be really feasible because I was very ignorant and very naive. And thought, yeah, it looks easy enough. Most of it's, just a couple locations. And
4 years later, we finally finished it.
apparently doing a period piece sci-fi horror comedy isn't the easiest thing in the world when you're working with, I believe we had the same budget as the original before inflation. So
Yeah.
after inflation, I think they had about $500,000 on us. So yeah, but to your question about what to leave in, what to take out, anything that was added, it was important to me that it feel like it could conceivably have been part of the original movie. Perhaps with the humor drawn out a bit more, but I wanted it to seem like the detective was part of the original, that the father returning, I'm kind of surprised that wasn't part of the original, given he's the main voice of dissent. And as far as what to include, it always rubbed me the wrong way that it's seen as an unintentionally funny movie, just due to its incompetency, which there's a lot of incompetent aspects to the movie, but it is quite funny on its own terms. The cat fight is a perfect example of something that is in the original film and clearly meant to be gratuitous and silly, and so yeah, just kind of expanding on what I thought its strongest qualities already were.
Yeah, when I first read the script, I really loved that you didn't need to see the original to enjoy it. It was written in a way where it didn't just purely make references to the original and make comedy off of that. It was its own thing, and I think that works to its benefit.
Yeah, we right after we finally selected it, we went and rewatched the original. I've got the Synapse DVD here, and we threw that in and watched it. And I thought from our watching of your film, I thought, oh, they added all of these like fun jokes and stuff. Oh, a lot of those are in the original movie. Like
It's really trippy rewatching, isn't it? It's trippy. Yeah. I've gone back and watched it since, and like the lines are rearranged and come in different places. It's a very strange experience to watch the original.
Well, that was actually part of our homework to watch the original before we started filming. And one of the things that I thought about the original was that it was a lot darker and a lot more sinister towards the end. And I went, holy crap, Jan in the Pan is actually the bad guy. So that's what I took out of the first one. Not this one.
He's definitely more villainous in the original. It's hard to know where that line begins and ends too, because the film is sympathetic to her plight, but it also very unambiguously has her transform into a monster, even down to her voice. It's kind of this very I don't know. I attribute that to kind of the Universal monsters tradition, where they're very much a monster, but they're sympathetic to like Frankenstein or something. But yeah, I find she's a much more sympathetic figure in ours.
Absolutely,
she should be.
Yeah. In the original, she has that sort of arch quality you get from kind of semi-villain female leads and movies from the period.
Wasn't she actually just really angry? Like she didn't want to finish the film. Wasn't that true?
Yeah. They re-recorded stuff with a different actress. There's a couple lines where you can tell the voice is completely different.
Oh, funny.
Yeah, she didn't have a good time, I don't think.
I had a good time. Our Dan had a good time making the remake.
Well, tell us about what that was like. Were you underneath the table with a thing, and like, was there actually a dummy, like a stand-in prosthetic head for some shots?
Yeah, I did not have to burn my head. The fire bit was not me.
She said no. So.
What?
I said she said no. We tried.
I know. I was not yet and not ready for that part of my career yet. No, yeah, it was an intro. Do we want to talk about the oopsies of the?
Sure. Yeah.
All right. When we first tried to put my head through, it wouldn't fit. So originally, I was supposed to be able to take my head pretty easily in and out, but we ended up having to. The crew really quickly got it figured out, but I had to shimmy my head through it every day. And then it was a fun process to unshimmy too. They kind of had to pop my head out.
But the level of control Rachel had to have for staying still and not making her head pop up and down like she was still attached to the body was remarkable.
I noticed that today too. Both,
I mean, you had to
have
going on.
Good job. A stillness.
You were a complete saint. I got claustrophobic just watching you. I don't know how you did that.
I got claustrophobic, so we did a short little video for the Kickstarter, and I was under the table for 30 minutes, and it was terrible. So, You are a saint. Good job.
Oh, thanks. It's that funny. When we first did it, the first time I went in and I was like, oh, I don't know about this. But then once we started doing it on the regular, it was fine.
We would catch her like sitting there like meditating.
Oh yeah.
At the table.
Fall asleep in the table.
Yeah.
How much of the shoot was you under the table? How much of the overall filming?
Oh, guys.
I don't remember how many days you were on set. Patrick was on set almost every single day.
Yeah.
But Rachel, I think you were on set for like 7 days, 8 days.
I think
and
so.
you were probably under the table for 6 of those.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Wow. Were you sitting or were you kneeling? Or like, how were you?
I was on an apple box.
On
Yeah,
an apple box.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I remember, what was it? We were trying to get the measurements right, and like we're just like finally we realized that I could sit underneath an apple box, and that would be the right height.
Okay.
I remember talking to somebody about it like after the shoot and just being really proud of myself, and like, yeah, I did it. It was hard, but we did it. And the person was just like, why didn't you guys just lift the table up? Like, so you could just like have a chair. Nobody, not me, nobody had that like thought.
That's a good idea.
next time you remake, when you remake the remake.
Yeah.
We have a question in the chat actually. Carrie Scribner asked, the special effects were amazing. Loved the face melting. Who did your special effects?
So we had a great makeup team led by Sarah Prevost, and the special effects artist was Cameron Gates, who is pretty well known in the Portland area. And they did all the prosthetics, the monster makeup. Cameron did design the monster. And they did amazing. And almost all of it is practical. There's only a couple small digital things that I added later.
So you, so Derek, are you in New York?
I am.
Where
yes.
are you at? But you made the film. But you made the film here in Portland.
Yeah, I used to live in Portland. I lived there for a couple of years, and that's how I know everyone here. It was not feasible to make this film in New York. It would have been 10 times as expensive. So I came back, made it there.
So pretty much everyone else on the film except for you was based in Portland then. Is that right?
Yep. 100%.
What were some of the locations that you used? Because like a lot of them seem familiar, but sometimes when you think it's one place, it's actually another because they look really similar if they're from the same time period of architecture.
I'd guess Dante's is probably the most recognizable because the exterior and interior are actually that location.
And then there's the Star Theater. What's that?
Skidmore Fountain, looking south, just underneath the Burnside Bridge where the Saturday Market originally takes place.
And then Producers Row, I think is called, was a bar that we were at. Star Theater. A lot of it was filmed up at a family friend's house up in the woods.
Where I used to shoot home movies as a kid. In those exact forests where the thing is carrying Doris.
That's
I think we,
from a different movie, Hank.
Yep.
I think we scared them. We told them we were coming to film a movie, and then I don't think they were expecting we showed up with like 15 cars, and they're like, "Oh, it's like a real movie."
Like I said, I made movies there growing up, so I think they were expecting me and like 4 buddies.
Now, was that the location of like the summer house where he has the lab in the basement?
Yeah. So so that field, that's where that was, up at the Melenzics. Is that who it was?
Yeah, the Melenzics. That's like Helvetia, if you know that area, West Union Road. It's really pretty part of outside of Portland.
But that house doesn't actually exist. That's just digitally added in there.
Okay.
And then everything inside was filmed on a set. We rented out a warehouse, and built all our sets in there. That's where majority of the shooting took place. I really like that old style of the old films where it's like obviously a sound stage and it's like way too big, heavy top lighting, and so we were trying to copy that.
Okay. I imagine that gave you a lot of more control over the lighting design and kind of where things were and rigging and everything.
Yeah, the light helped with the lighting, but not the sound. There was a train that would pass by all the time. That was a disaster. But our sound team did a good job of cleaning that up.
Oh my goodness. So how did you cast the film? Like, did you already, like, did you know a bunch of people and said, hey, I'm making a movie, I want you to be in it? Did you cast some of the part? Did you audition any of the parts?
It was mostly people I knew and people who were referred to me. We only auditioned a couple roles. Patrick was one of the few people that we actually auditioned because I didn't know anyone at the time who I thought would be good for Bill. And I'm inexperienced with auditions. I usually just cast my friends. Didn't know what I was doing. I think I scared Patrick as well because he came in and did such a good job. I was like, wow, that's awesome. All right, cool. We'll let you know. And he told me later, he's like, I thought I didn't get it because he was just like ended it. But no, it was like, he did such a good job. We're like, I don't need to see more. You're probably the one. Then let's see, I can't remember how I found Mia. I didn't know Mia before the shoot. I think you were recommended to me by maybe our friend Jeffrey Newman.
He recommended most of the people.
Jeffrey.
Yeah.
He deserves a special thanks.
And that's how we found Rachel, was through Jeffrey. He had worked with Rachel before. And Jason was in a short film, a couple short projects we had done before. So Jason's actually the only one that we had worked with.
And Jason was the only part, I wrote Kurt for Jason. That was the only actor where I specifically wrote it for a person in mind. Mostly based on knowing that he's really great at dying on camera.
Not the first time, yeah.
Nice 5-minute long death scene. Nothing like it.
Oh yeah.
It's skill.
Wasn't there was a continuity thing with the death scene, wasn't there? There was something about the blood. Am I wrong? Like, because they had to spray it, so we could only do it a few times.
One time is all.
Oh, it was only one time.
There was the iconic shot from the original where he can like smears across the wall that we wanted to do, and we could only do that once because once the smear mark is there, it's there. Like we didn't have time to repaint the wall and respray it with blood. So yeah, it was one shot and we got it.
One take.
Almost all of those effects were one shot. So.
Oh my God. Were there any shots that you were trying to do that you didn't get and like just had to move on because it didn't work out?
There was one that we actually got later. We were trying to get, it's in the movie, this kind of like POV shot of the acid falling down towards camera and hitting him in the face. We tried to do that the very last night, and it was like the last shot, and people were ready to be done and start celebrating. So we killed it then. I ended up doing it here in my apartment, and luckily I have like a big like warehouse apartment, so the ceiling looked like a basement. And it was literally just me with the camera and my roommates pouring seltzer water on me.
Wow.
It looks great.
Nice. Excellent. We have a bunch of questions coming in on the chat, so I'm just going to start firing off. Let's see. I'm going to pick a good one. Oh, question from Quinn James's partner. Were any of the nightclub actors actually local burlesque dancers? They all did such a great job.
No, they were not. That was Bethany and Devin. Those are just regular old actors, and they were fantastic. But no, not real burlesque dancers.
Okay.
Bethany Jacobs is in Star Drunk. If for those who haven't seen it, I highly recommend it.
So funny.
It's very funny. As is Greg James, the bartender.
Isn't Patrick in one of them too?
Yeah.
Patrick is, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm in Super Drunk.
Oh, sorry.
Get it right, you guys.
I tried to get to be part of it, but my liver was already too damaged, so they wouldn't let me be part of it.
See. There's another question. Hank, how much did you like you really like kind of uplifted the script where all the underlying themes and progressive undertones intended? The movie was funny, but it also spoke to some major topics in a really meaningful way.
Are they asking if the subtext that's there was present in the original, or?
I think so. I think what they're asking is there's, you know, all those layers and how much of that was you adding to and how much was maybe already there.
I think most of it was expanding on what's there, but some of it I truly don't know if it was intended or not, but it was there regardless. If you the relationship between Bill and Kurt and a penis-shaped monster in a closet is if that's not intentional, maybe, you know, but yeah, there was definitely a point not to make that stuff too explicit. I thought it would be kind of odd if a film that was made in 59 was more subtle than ours. So a lot of that's left at kind of a it's kind of a simmering, cheeky sort of tone. I think as far as the stuff that's expanded on that wasn't as present in the original, I think is Bill's his general psychopathy and the narcissism, the constantly gaslighting everybody. Anything that Jan says to him, he immediately will tell her that she's wrong or incorrect. And at one point he just says, I won't hear it, you know. And granted, this was right before I learned the term gaslighting. If I had written this script 6 months later, I would have leaned much harder into some of these elements. I thought I was writing about a bygone era. I didn't realize that this stuff was far more relevant now. Kind of a bummer, actually, that it is as topical as it is.
What I did really love about the original is it actually did seem ahead of its time in terms of issues about like controlling a woman's body is the main one. That is very much in the original, and it's way ahead of its time. And it was kind of a shock that, 50 something years later, we were making a movie where it was just as relevant.
Yeah, whether that's from a pro-choice perspective or a right to death, there is that bodily autonomy, and yeah, like she says in ours, it's nobody's choice but mine. That sentiment does exist in the original, but again, it's hard to parse. It doesn't strike me as a movie that had a strong political agenda, but it's all there.
There's also a question, back, where did it go? Can you explain why you chose to include the Othello reference towards the end?
Somebody caught that. Oh, cool. That's my single favorite line from all of Shakespeare, and now I'm gonna not know what it is. I'm paraphrasing, but when Othello finds out that the extent of Iago's deception, he says, "I'd look at your feet, but that is a myth. If you were the devil, I could not kill thee." And he sticks a sword through him. It's pretty good. Why did I include that? Well, it's throughout there's people suggesting that Bill is essentially the devil, or as evil. I do like when that the character is such a blowhard, and he's constantly being, so dumb and gregarious and this and that. And I like the idea of letting somebody wax philosophical right before they're snuffed out, like showing you their deepest, most intriguing aspect of their personality right before they die. It's just kind of tragic. And Yeah, I honestly can't. It's been so long that I can't remember if there was more to it than that. But I think, yeah, just hinting at the idea of how could a person be this horrible and still just be a person.
Interesting. So
Did you see Quinn's follow-up there?
yes, let's see. Quinn. So that question was from Quinn James, and he said, loved how I'd say the physically strongest character in my mind was the woman who stood up for herself, fought back, and chased Bill through the streets with a shotgun. And that was totally unexpected and awesome. And they also said the topics of assisted suicide and end of life. Did you intend to put all those layers in as well?
Yeah.
And it does seem like those are very present in the original film. And I think speak to that control over a woman's body and our questions of our own autonomy when we're in a medical situation.
Yeah.
Severed head situation, as it were.
we definitely talked about that a lot in pre-production. And that was definitely something we were intending to go for. But it was also in the original, so we just kind of expanded on that. So.
Nice. Yeah. And then I have a question for Rachel and Patrick. In the scenes where you're kind of courting together in like before all the shit hits the fan, were those were those hard scenes to capture? Because had you just kind of met at that point, or were those scenes filmed? Did you film in order?
No,
At first, I guess, did you film in order, and then next, was it hard to get those?
We did not film in order, except for the final scene where the big fight in the fire. That was all the last night, so that was kind of nice to do that late. But no, everything else was just jumbled for whenever we had locations available.
Yeah, I guess. Patrick, did we really know each other before? The weird thing is I feel like I've known you for a very, very long time. So I don't.
No, we actually met at the Kickstarter shoot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. I would just say Patrick is such a lovely human being that it's not hard to work with him. He's always like, you can see there'll be like, I'll be shots where I'm stuck in the table and Patrick's like looking out for me or like taking the tape off of my like face or, making sure I'm okay. And he's always checking in on me throughout the entirety of the shoot. So no, any intimacy with Patrick was super easy because he's a very loving person.
You're very kind, and I feel exactly the same way about you. And in fact, I remember us bonding about the Thin Man when we were on set, just talking about that kind of witty attitude and chemistry that the actors in that film had.
Yeah, that's right. I named my dog after their dog.
Yeah. We bonded
quickly. Brilliant actors too, so don't take that away.
Thank you, Jason. You too.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I'm wondering Patrick, how much blood did you get up your nose in that opening scene with the
my God.
with the patients on the table?
That was something. It was more the eyes. I literally could not keep my eyes open. It was like a fountain of blood in the face. And Derek just let it go for so long.
I kind of wish we got longer, but it's all right.
It was such a blast. This film is one of the most fun times I've ever had on a set ever in my life. So.
I agree.
Derek can abuse me all he wants.
How many times did you have to do that shot? Or how many times did you have to blast him in the face?
We had one try.
Okay.
We got all over the set and the costumes and
Well, even in the next scene, you can still kind of see it in my hair and on the side of my face, which is pretty fun.
We love the gag with them when they pull off their gowns and they're wearing their full suits underneath. And then later when he his lab coat comes flying off and he's wearing his leather jacket underneath.
Those are probably my favorite gags in the movie.
Yeah. And was that the flying, was that just wires pulling?
It was.
Off?
Yeah, our wardrobe department was just off camera pulling fishing wire, and then just in editing, I just got rid of the wires.
The scene in the car where he's driving and he's, you know, screwing around and everything, I identified with that because sometimes I'm a front seat driver or a passenger seat driver when Brian's driving, especially on long road trips and we're going around curves like that. But and it ends in this wonderful moment where Bill kind of wakes up and, like, you know, Jan's head is gone and it's just the body. Was that the same effects person that also built that, and like how much of that existed in space? Because you only kind of feel, or was that you with like a green bag over your head?
Yeah, they didn't know there was no green. I don't know how you guys did it because they really just chopped my head off. I mean, they didn't really. I'm fine.
It's actually pretty easy. Yeah, we just put a green hood over her head and she just chilled for a couple hours. And then put some blood effect like rolling down her neck. And then in post, you just cut out the green screen part and then put on like a flesh plate where the neck would be, and that's it.
I don't even remember the green bag. It must have been really cold.
I think I have some pictures of you in the back. Yeah.
I don't remember that. That's funny.
I'm imagining like a, you know, life casting Rachel and like doing all this stuff, but that seems like a much simpler way to do it. Much simpler, less messy way. For all of the actors, were there times where it was difficult to perform because of either prosthetics or physical, like set physical limitations? I mean, for Rachel, you don't have your body to express anything. It's all in your face, and you did a wonderful job. And Jason, you've got the hand, and
the hand was pretty easy to work with. I just had to be really careful because Cameron Gates would have murdered me if I would have ruined it. So I had to be very careful with that. We had to bag it up quite often to keep myself from touching anything or tearing a hole in it or knocking one of the fingernails off. But for me, the most difficult part was I did a lot of my filming after work, my day job. I wasn't on set till probably 4, 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock at night, till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning every night. And the last night of shooting, where they have the big death scene where I get my arm ripped off, I don't remember filming any of that.
Oh no.
Sleep deprived. That I was talking to people on set when they weren't even talking to me.
I remember Derek was worried that you were gonna die for real.
You looked, I couldn't tell if you were just getting into character or if we should call the hospital. So
that was my most difficult part.
But he just kept being like, "Oh, it's fine, it's fine," and then like another 6 hours went by where he just had to like be dead against the wall, and I think he liked that part because he probably just slept the whole time.
Right.
And for Mia, your character has, you know, a little scar on her face, and the whole thing is for me comedic because the implication is that because she has this scar that you can, I mean, honestly can barely see, she's ruined as a woman, and like her value is only in like the artist drawing her body and things like that. Like, how did you get into that kind of mindset? Because you're gorgeous, and this little thing doesn't really take away from that.
I know it's really silly when we look at this, the reality of it, like kind of abstractly or objectively, but women do that to themselves every day. It wasn't difficult at all. It was like, you know, any number of the flaws I can pick out on my own face and do value myself for that and think I don't have whatever because of this. It's a constant psychosis that women really have to work themselves through as we mature, and it happens, thank God. I think for most people at some point or another, you know, through our life experiences we're affected. But you know, the hilarity of it is, you know, at the beginning of the pinup scene, Josh Rice, who plays Hugh Hefner in that scene, says, "Well, her body is amazing, but I've seen better faces." It's just like, you know, that is where that thought process comes from. And my favorite scene, which I like of my own, like not even closely comparing to the rest of the film in any way whatsoever, because everyone was so fantastic. I just, like, my heart exploded. But you know, she rejects Hugh, just like, I'm not interested. I'm just like, yeah, like, that's what's up, girl. You know, and like, so that's really fun for me to be, to recognize like how fragile our sense of security can be. I think I'm just gonna say, like, as a woman, it's very fragile. I'm not gonna object to suggest that men don't feel it as well. However, as a woman, like, it is as an actor that is a woman, it's very prevalent. So I don't know. I think it's relatable to a lot more people when we really think about what it is. But of course, it's like totally stupid. You're like, it's back, whatever. It's not important.
Well,
Obviously not.
I like the notion that I think is in the original too, that she's had to lower herself to being photographed, you know, for just, you know, here's some cash, honey, let me take some photos of your booty, you know.
Yeah.
That's a reality. That's a reality for women, you know, like, women are hired for their looks. I swear to God, it's been a number of the first handful of film projects that I was in a bikini, I was naked, I was whatever, you know, and that's, I mean, not literally naked. Stop whatever your internet searching is right now. There's no internet porn of me on there, okay? Yeah, but anyway, it's like expected of women in a large degree to use their body to move them forward. And that's not, it's not limited to the film industry whatsoever. It's a universal experience.
Well, can I ask a question? Was it planned to have to make it such a small, like, because it actually made for such an interesting topic, like when they're like, oh, well, she's like, we can't do anything with her face now, and you're like, I can't even see it. Like, was that kind of it on purpose?
Like, you are so punk rock right now. Own it.
I honestly do not remember what the decision was. This was 4 years ago when we shot this.
Was it different than the original? I actually...
The original is bigger.
Yeah, it's like all kind
It's
of
like a big burn.
Yeah.
Huh. I didn't have
I'm
it.
gonna say we planned it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, edit that out. Yeah, it was all intentional.
Patrick, you have such wonderful comedic timing. Have you done horror films before? Are you normally doing kind of comedy things or dramas? Like, what are the types of projects you're normally working on?
You know, I've done a couple of like horror things before, but typically what I do is very dark, heavy drama. So this was actually a complete blessing for me to just go crazy and have fun. We talked about, you know, different films and actors and performances that we kind of wanted to capture. And I know Derek and I talked about Young Frankenstein, Gene Wilder, kind of, you know, that manic craziness, but still being able to be very witty and smart and intelligent, and just kind of looking at the satire of gender roles, especially for that time period, you know. So I think that's really what I was going for.
Can I ask all the people, all the actors here, what did you think when you first read this very strange script? This is not something that usually comes across your desk, I'm guessing. Ooh, I stumped him.
I'll say that I've done a number of jobs that I've been blessed to do a number of jobs that were period pieces. So I was like, oh, this part of that genre of my skill set. But loved it, like every bit of it. It's totally, you know, I describe it as a bite out of my career dream cake.
I definitely enjoyed and loved the script when I first read it. I did ask myself, "Whoa, what did I get myself into here? Am I over my head a little bit or not?" And it was fun because it was challenging. Because I usually get a little typecast as a bad guy quite often in films, soldier or a badass or maybe even a cop. But this one it definitely challenged me quite a bit. So I grew quite a bit as an actor on this one. That's a fact.
Yeah,
Rachel?
actually, Jason, we cast you specifically because our short Bad Seed, where you play the villain, the murderous villain, but then you also played the monster, and you're like all cutesy in this ghillie suit, and we're like, oh man, he's really good at being like lovable and hateable, which is kind of what Kurt needed. He needs to have that switch at the end where he goes all murderous.
Excellent.
Jason and Mia both got to work with the monster. Who played the monster?
Our co-producer. It's pretty funny. Derek and I were talking, going, where are we gonna find the original actor, who I believe may have had giantism, but don't quote me on that. But Eddie Camel, I want to say. He was 7 feet tall, I think, and we were like, how are we ever going to find somebody that tall? Our co-producer walks out into the backyard while we're having this conversation. He's just under 7 feet.
Yep.
And we go, hey, Alex, how would you like to be in the movie?
Yeah, Alex Tiefenthaler. He's got the perfect last name for being almost 7 feet tall. You know what? What's funny? He's actually an NCAA basketball star. He made it to the Sweet 16, I think, several times during his basketball career.
I think he played semi-pro, like.
Semi-pro even.
Yeah, and he came in. He didn't have any acting experience, but he was awesome to work with. He killed it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That was great makeup.
Yeah, Cameron Gates killed
Cameron
it.
Gates is
so hard.
Right.
Rachel, what was it like for you, Rachel, when you read the script? I'm curious. Because you were just ahead.
Well, there was 2 different scripts. So there was the first script that I read, and then there was a second script that I read. I'm sure there was actually probably a few more scripts, but my favorite thing in the entire world is Young Frankenstein and Blazing Saddles and that type of humor. And when I first read it, it made me think of those things. And I got really excited about the script for the comedy of it, for the ripping off of the or what was it when like the blood comes up at him and in his face, and I just like dab like the part, like his forehead, like that stuff is like all I ever want to do in acting. And I know I'm supposed to be like, yes, drama and like Oscar winning things, but like that type of stuff is like, it's my favorite thing. It's my favorite thing. And I really, really was happy to have been able to have been a part of it. So thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Young Frankenstein is, I think, objectively the best movie that's ever been made.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yes.
I'm with you. And the duet in this, it was very much trying to have our putting on the Ritz.
Yeah.
That and a reference to
yeah.
The Man with Two Brains, which references The Brain That Wouldn't Die. Steve Martin sings that song as a duet with a brain. And so we thought it'd be kind of fun to reference that movie, come full circle.
I love that. I remember you guys showing me that, The Man with Two Brains.
That's a good movie.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of your film, this is not in the original film, because I think the original film just ends with the house burning down. But Bill's father comes back and finds the tapes, and like he keeps Bill's brain alive in a jar.
Spoilers.
Hopefully all these people, everyone has seen this already. Like why did you go in that direction? Did you feel like that was the natural conclusion of
Yeah, again,
story.
I'm surprised that isn't in the original. I wish I could find the original script. I would love to read that because I'm thinking stuff got cut for time or budget reasons because it is I mean, that is the Twilight Zone, ironic twist ending. It only makes sense that he should suffer the same fate that he made, Jan go through, and it makes the title accurate.
Yes.
Yeah, for those of you who haven't seen the original, there is no brain
It's just
in the brain that wouldn't
head that
die.
would-
There is on the poster.
Isn't it like in the end of the original movie in the credits, it's the head, it changes to the head that wouldn't die?
So I think the story is it was originally named The Head That Wouldn't Die, and then they changed it to The Brain That Wouldn't Die for marketing reasons, right?
There was that movie, The Brain, that had been pretty disembodied brain movies were having a renaissance.
But yeah, that's just pure Hank's brilliance right there, just making the title actually make sense.
Brilliance is a stretch. It's low. I mean, it just seems so obvious.
Well, in the original, doesn't his father like narrate the film or narrate the beginning of the film or something like that?
He's in the beginning. He's the one telling Bill, it's a fine line between. I don't know if I used to have the old movie memorized. I don't anymore because of ours. But he's the one telling him, stop playing God, stop messing around with things. He's the voice of dissent. And then it's so strange. He actually announces like, "Oh, I'm leaving now for the rest of the movie. I'm going to a conference in another state." Or so I can't remember what it is he says, but
yeah, you never see him again after the walk.
You never see him again.
Oh my gosh.
They only had him for the day.
Yeah,
Probably.
It's a logistical problem. It had nothing to do with the story.
They only had an actor for 4 hours. So there's a character in your film that doesn't appear in the original, and that is the detective played by the late great Robert Blanc.
Yes.
And what was the kind of, why did you decide to write that character in, and how did you come to work with Robert Blanc?
I still don't know how we got to work with Robert Blanc. That's still a surprise to me. He and Rachel were two people where we desperately wanted them and thought never in a million years. Next thing we know, we're sitting down with them and they're on board. And I still remember walking away with Derek and we're going, what just happened? Or did we just become charming suddenly or what? How? We haven't done anything. We haven't. Anyway, why that character was written. You need to give it that feel that walls could be closing in on Bill. There has to be somebody again, something that I'm guessing was cut for time or budget reasons. In the original, Kurt asks him, what are we gonna do when the police discover the wreck? And he goes, they won't. And that's the end of it.
Movie magic.
Yeah. The police won't get involved, and and I was like, oh well, they ought to. Yeah.
I mean, it felt very natural.
It's a staple of the genre, especially with the movie's third noir film, a third gothic horror, a third brain sci-fi stuff, and detectives come with the noir genre. So, yeah.
He was another person recommended to us by Jeffrey Newman. And I think I just hit him up on Facebook. I didn't think he would respond. And then he was like, yeah, sure, let's grab a drink. And him and Hank and I went to a bar that I'm forgetting the name of. And just hit it off. And then I don't think we even talked about the movie the entire time. We were just BSing. And at the end, he was like, sure, okay, I'll do it. I'm like, okay. Cool. And I remember we were walking away from the bar and Hank and I just like, did that really just happen? Like, that's amazing. And he was just, oh man, he was such an amazing actor, such a awesome person to have on set. And we miss him very much.
Yeah.
I agree 100% with that.
So for all of you, I mean, I'm guessing that he signed on because he felt real comfortable with you and Hank, because I think when you're an actor, probably knowing that you're in the hands of a director that you trust is important. Is that how the rest of you, the cast, felt about working with Derek? Like, what was it like for you working with
what did you think of it?
Something I have to.
Something on fire.
Sorry, my signal is
Complete
messing up.
monster. You overworked us. Never gave us any water. I mean, it was terrible.
It's like two Tommy Wiseaus.
You guys, for me, working with Derek was fantastic. I had experience working on a couple short films first, so I knew what I was getting into. But it's always been a pleasure.
Yeah, for me, it just felt like a true collaboration from beginning to end. And like I said, I had the most fun I probably ever had on a set on this film. And he's the captain of that ship, you know?
Yeah. I love it when we get to play and rehearse, like when we go and do rehearsals. And Derek is somebody that's very open to, even though there was like, obviously we had things that we had to get this done, A, B, and C had to get done, and it was a tight schedule. And you never made us feel like it was. It was always playful. Coming to set was always where we're supposed to work, but you made it a very safe environment. And you made it a very safe environment, all of you guys did, because it was extremely a very professional environment.
Mm-hmm.
Because
shout
everybody
out to Molly Preston.
That girl.
Yeah, she's amazing.
And our AD Eileen did an amazing job.
Yes. Eileen kept us on track for sure.
Oh yeah.
But you allowed us to experiment. You allowed us to fail too, which was a really nice feeling. That's something that, you know, actors we struggle with, because we want to try new things and, you know, experiment, and oftentimes that's shut down really quickly. And you allowed us that area to play, which I'm very grateful for.
Yeah, it's the easiest thing in the world to try something and then you go, that didn't work.
But I think it's I don't know if you'll ever be able to understand how much we appreciate that. It really is. I think some people think it's an easy thing to do, and I think it takes. I do believe it takes a very talented person to get an entire cast feeling like they can play,
right,
and have fun and experiment.
There's actually a lot of little bits that were purely created from the actors, like Kurt continually putting his hand on Bill's shoulder. That was something that they just came up with on set. And Jan like continually like turning her cheek towards the kiss. That was something she came up with. And I particularly love that one because it when the only kiss that Bill actually does get is with Mia and Doris, and it just makes that moment so much more impactful. So yeah, glad you came up with that.
Kevin Forrest in the chat says, Molly says hi.
Hey.
Kevin was our cinematographer. Kevin was the best.
Yes, Kevin was awesome.
There's Phil has such a wonderful look.
He made it look so pretty.
I love it. Yeah.
And someone else complimented the set design, the costumes, makeup, set design, SFX, everything was just great all around production. And Quinn James says, shout out to everyone who worked so hard to bring it all together. Yeah, and like someone else asked, where did you find all the props? All the period appropriate props, and was that a struggle or was that easy?
Production designer was Tiffany Ayers, who did an amazing job with almost zero money.
Yeah.
We, like Hank said, we made it for about the same money that they made the original in the 60s. So I think about 70 to 80% of our budget just went to paying people. And a big chunk of the rest went to like insurance and locations and stuff. So we were getting real creative, and Tiffany did an amazing job with not very much time either. She was often like leaving the shoot and going to look for stuff. Did an amazing job. Then, you know, we just got creative too. Like there's a car show in Portland and we went down there and just started handing out flyers and we got all those cars for free. Like just got people to volunteer.
I was wondering about that today.
I didn't know that.
We handed out like 300 flyers and we got exactly the people who are in it are the ones that responded. So.
Oh wow!
Is the
Big shout out to Daniel Timothy Tracy, the rookie cop.
Yeah.
He helped with you guys with getting those cars, which was you guys worked so hard. That was amazing to get those.
Our producer
Nice
working
production
behind the
value.
scenes. Yeah.
Derek, am I correct that the car that David Withers is driving at the end, the father, that's Robert's car, right?
That is Robert's car.
Yeah,
Oh wow!
I love that car.
Yeah, that's a great moment when I think it's when Patrick turns the corner in front of all that red brick, and there's sort of like half a dozen classic cars, shiny classic cars lined up, you know, in the nighttime lights. It's a really cool image. And I immediately thought, oh my God, where'd they get all those cars from?
Yeah.
It is amazing that Burnside, you know, you just throw a couple classic cars on that street and it looks like the 60s. There's maybe a couple traffic lights and ATM machines that are a bit.
We did have to do a little work in post. There's an ATM like right in the center of the frame, and so you see a poster that I digitally
Carnival of
faked in
Souls.
there. Yeah. Just
Oh, okay. Oh, fun.
Yeah.
Fun. Well, I was going to say that I think you did really well with that, because now that I'm really thinking about what was in each shot, it was almost like watching a stage play or something, because there were the walls were kind of sparse and there wasn't a lot of like furnishings really, but the things that you needed, like the props, like the drink decanters and the lamp and things like that, were all perfectly placed, so you didn't really notice that there wasn't, and you know, the lighting design and everything gave you this feeling of fullness when maybe there wasn't actually like a lot of like things in the shot.
Yeah, I think that was half by choice, half by necessity, where like I said, we just didn't have a lot of money, but also it's just kind of that old B-movie vibe where it's like a gigantic stage, obviously, with a couch in the corner.
Yeah.
That's the living room. And so we're really trying to emulate that and emulate it with like the camera movement and how you can actually kind of, it's almost like you feel someone holding the camera and moving it in the background. And then, yeah, the light design
mistakes were
kept it
intentional.
Yeah.
Turns out when you're making a low budget movie, it's a really good idea to make a B movie.
Yes.
Because anything you can't do or you mess up, it's on purpose.
On purpose.
I'm reminded of the sort of those old Warner Brothers cartoons where the the characters are fully animated in the front, but the backgrounds are sort of like a color wash or like a sketch of like a table, just like a little line drawing, you know.
Yeah.
And a lot of the B movies from that period sort of feel like, yeah, it's just an empty soundstage with a few little pieces of furniture on it.
That said though, it was because time was such a factor. I do remember when we're like, okay, we're breaking down the dining room and now it's going to be like this room and now we're going to go here and now it's going to become this. And they were just like the changes that needed to happen that did happen. The crew,
we had room. Yeah, the crew did an amazing job. We had a room for 2 sets. We had the big one, which was like the operation room at the lab. And then we had the small one, which was everything else. And if you look closely, you're like, the doors and windows are in the exact same place every single time.
completely different set. It was as like people were like taking the stuff off of me and like getting me ready for something. Like it was pretty cool to see just constant with the crew.
Transformation.
Do you guys have any fun stories from I guess this was for Derek, fun stories from post-production, but I'm wondering if any of the rest of you have like favorite moments from the shoot.
No, not really. Post-production was hell.
Wait, did you say no?
I said no, I don't have any fun stories from post-production. It was hell. It was me in this room for months and months and months.
You worked hard, Derek. We appreciate you so much.
I got amazing help from our assistant editor, Sarah Ligatich. She did a great job with the rough cut, which was much more than a rough cut.
Yeah.
Other than me, like my friends didn't see me for a year. It was
Labor of love.
I think my favorite scene for my favorite moment in the movie was the laboratory scene. the getting blown up and running through the campus with a.
That's my favorite. That's my favorite shot of the whole film is seeing you in the background flailing around.
Yeah.
It's like you're falling sideways.
That was yeah, it's probably my favorite day on set.
I had a particularly good time being carried through the woods by the Thing. Gotta say, it was just like the most like fantastical experience that I could kind of have as an actor. You know, like this crazy large being, and he's carrying me, and it's like, I don't know, straight out of a storybook or a nightmare or both.
It was like, it felt like, what was it, the werewolf? It just
The
felt like
Wolf
some
Man,
like
yeah.
Wolf Man. It felt like Wolfman.
Right. Yeah, it was sort of had a nostalgia to it, even though it wasn't a firsthand nostalgia. So bringing that kind of full circle was it was fun. It was also like just really fun to be out in the woods with everybody, and like, I'm sure it wasn't great for you guys, but we had a good time.
I liked how there's that moment which I don't think is in the original where we see that the monster's not a bad guy. He's not he's not taking your character off to do anything terrible to you. You know, he lets you go in the woods and he's cool. He's cool.
Just lowers his head.
It just breaks your heart. I'm just like, oh my God, I'm gonna cry. I'm gonna go back to the shoot and go save him.
We did a private like test screening with some people that like a couple years ago just to get some notes on the edit, and that scene in particular got the funniest reaction. It got split 50-50, people laughing or people going, "Aw." Like, perfect. That's what we wanted.
That's it.
That was that moment. I mean, the lead up is obviously inspired by The Wolf Man and all those movies where the monsters, the bridal carry with. Always loved that imagery, but the final moment of this creature being left alone, standing in the fog, just sad and isolated, is from another one of my favorite B movies that's was a Mystery Science Theater. If you've ever seen Pod People,
yeah,
there's the Trumpy, the alien is left alone in the forest at the end of the movie. He's just kind of standing there like, what now? Although they let the camera run a little too long, because you see him finally just kind of shrug and turn around and start walking off. It kind of undercuts the tragedy, but yeah, I love that. I love a monster just being sad and unmonstrous. Yeah, Trumpy. Derek and I developed a pretty great adaptation of that one too. A much further departure than our version of Brain, but
is that a future project or something you've already
made? I hope so.
Someone wants to give us some money, we'll do it.
Yeah. We have a pretty good take on it.
I think my favorite days on set was I love Patrick. I think it's anytime he was getting tortured. Like, so like the day that like the blood had to go on him or like anything
Patrick
like that.
Had it rough.
It was my favorite.
I'll tell you what,
driving the cars.
My favorite part was shaving his beard.
What?
Oh, we forced Patrick to shave his beard, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Like, I'm still bitter about that. No, my favorite was driving the cars because I remember the red car, Rachel and I riding around in that, and I was like, God, I hope these brakes actually work, because they didn't feel like they did.
Cool about it. And I was like, is this safe? And you're like, I don't know.
But then the second car died on us. I don't know if you're doing that.
Yeah, that white car when you're driving around and you meet
Donna,
yeah. It died like right away. We got one shot, so you can kind of tell like at the end of that scene it fades out and they're just sitting there in a non-moving car.
Goodness. Sarah Ligatich also says hi.
Sarah. Sarah.
Hey, it's our assistant editor.
Oh.
She's awesome. She did a
Oh, and
great
she was
job.
also the one that asked if you had any fun stories from post-production.
Oh.
They said no.
I joke.
Oh my goodness. We should probably, kept you on for like over an hour. We should probably wrap up and let you get on.
Yeah,
with
that's
it,
cool.
unless you have a burning question.
Well,
I
you
haven't
know
seen
what?
some of these people in 4 years. I don't care. So, yeah.
It's like dark behind me now, so
Yeah, I'm expecting like a monster to come out at any time.
That's Mia. The way your frame looks now is how I expect all the horror movies to look next year.
Mhm.
Sort of like a zoom and something looming out. Yeah. One thing I really liked in the movie was there was sort of like a before time, current time dynamic in some of those flashbacks to like when Jason and Patrick's characters met and how they became friends. But I do like, we talked a little bit about a little bit about women and what they have to deal with, but there's also quite a lot of pathos in Jason's character with regards to kind of the way he hangs off of Bill, with the way Kurt is sort of dependent on him.
Mm-hmm.
But when we see how they kind of met, it's a very whimsical sort of story, but it turns into something quite dark, I think. How did you approach kind of being that character, that sort of is so reliant on Bill in that way?
Well, it was kind of a underlining story, a little bit of a love affair between Kurt and Bill. I think Kurt definitely kind of idolizes Bill. Bill's the cool kid in town. He's super smart. He's a ladies' man, and so I think Kurt definitely has an affection towards Bill, and ever since college days. And then of course the accident happens. Bill probably feels bad about it. He keeps me around, and also to run experiments on Kurt. He feels bad about blowing his arm off, because one thing you don't know is I'm the only character to survive the laboratory explosion with that experimental rocket fuel. So there's nobody else left. I'm the only one left. And so
somehow
there is a heart. Bill does have a heart, so he definitely took me in and gave me a place to live and tried to give me a new arm.
I always
I
saw
think
it
that's
more as
coming
taking
from-
advantage of you. Yeah, go ahead, Patrick.
I was gonna say, do you have Stockholm syndrome?
I think you're giving Bill a lot of credit there. There's a reason he deserved worse than just a death at the end.
It's true.
I mean, I see
I wonder
Bill's-
if Bill even knows he's responsible for the loss of your arm.
Yeah.
I bet you he doesn't.
Well, I'm sure
You
it's,
know what, you're
he
probably
did
right.
something wrong.
What, Patrick?
I'm sure it's that he's, did something wrong in the lab.
Right. Yeah, it's your
Yeah.
fault.
Followed my damn instructions.
Together.
They did leave him with a warning right at the end there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I did.
Some about isotopes.
Experimental rocket fuel,
There's a little meta thing that I always loved, and when we first go to the flashback, we see Bill and Kurt in the bar, and they're both wearing sweaters that have their names on them.
Oh God,
And
that's great.
that wasn't intentional. That was something that Jade Harris, our wardrobe came up with. But we always just came up with backstory that Kurt probably made that for him and Bill.
I love that scene. That's one of my favorites. I like the, like I said, the sort of the before and after of the bartender also. I think that's a wonderful actor.
Greg James.
Yeah.
Amazing.
That was the very last thing I wrote before we started production. It was originally a different flashback that we just had to get rid of because it was a huge tonal departure. And I think it actually was to the benefit of the flashback. It just clips along. It has like a speed and an energy that was very much like, okay, what are we gonna do?
Well, that series
Love
of
that.
scene transitions are my favorite, really. Just the fade in, fade out on the presidents and all of that. It was
That
just
JFK to Eisenhower is pretty neat.
so good.
Yeah, I think that one was in the script. Am I
Mhm.
wrong?
I
Yeah,
just
and then
love.
we
Oh, sorry.
no, that's fine. And then we just came up with mirroring it on the other side of the ring as well. Came up with that later.
The presidents are great because you know that it allows the dates to be a little ambiguous but have a clear window, given JFK's untimely end and Eisenhower's 53 to 61. So you know, however the timeline works out, we don't know it exactly, but it gives you the right range of time to work with.
Let's see. Do we have any more questions for these guys before we let them go?
I would feel terrible not to
looking at
give
the chat window.
another shout out to Molly Preston, our producer.
Yes.
There is no overstating just how much she contributed to this. It would not have been possible without her. Not in a million years.
Yeah,
She
we
brought
didn't
in
know
most of the crew.
all the crew. We
All
didn't
the
know a
crew.
single one of them crew members, and she brought them all in, and they were all amazing.
And
And,
she's responsible for the fact that it was as a professional production as it was. Yeah, we really lucked out with her.
Yeah, she was great to work with, for sure.
Agreed. Yeah, every one of you guys were great to work with. I absolutely had one of the best times I can ever remember on a film set. You know, you all are wonderful people, wonderful actors. I just can't thank you enough.
Ditto.
Ditto.
We can't thank you enough for letting us show your film to our audience.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, this has been such an amazing experience. Like we really appreciate you guys putting this together in such a weird time, and it turned out so awesome. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I only wish we could have had your world premiere over at the Hollywood, but
Oh yeah.
you know, though, a lot of people got to enjoy it. I think it brightened up a lot of Sundays during a pretty dark period that we're kind of going through right now.
Absolutely.
Well, Trumpy will have to premiere at the Hollywood Theater.
There we go.
For sure. Well, Derek, what's next for you? Are you working on anything new?
No. With all the pandemic mess, I am actually about to move back to Portland, Oregon. So I'll be back in your guys'
Yay.
neck of the woods pretty soon.
Awesome.
Well, when you get here, give us a buzz. We'll go out for a coffee or something.
Absolutely, that would be awesome.
Socially distanced coffee.
Socially distanced. If that is an option at that time. Otherwise, we'll have a Zoom call from our respective points in Portland.
Yeah.
Exactly. Sounds good.
So is Brain still making the festival rounds? Is there a distribution plan or hope for it? When will the general public be able to see it, do you think?
I don't know. A lot of things have been thrown into chaos here. There are still a couple festivals which we plan to show that are still currently scheduled to be happening in person. And looking forward to those. But no, just wait and see, I guess.
Okay. Well, we'll be keeping an eye out, and if we hear anything, we'll let everyone know through our Facebook page. And yeah, happy to help spread the word when you know something.
Thank you so much.
Come see us at Newport Beach in August, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't advertise that festival here.
Hey, this one's over.
Is it California? Newport Beach, California?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Newport Beach, our festival nemesis.
Oh no.
There are so many film festivals. Can't keep track of them all.
Are they gonna have it on the beach?
We're hosting one in
that matters.
Portland. It's really awesome for Portland to get its, to be able to stand up and be proud of the tiny but very tenacious film community that we have. I'm in New York now, but don't hate me for it.
Yeah, I'm always amazed at how many people are just based in Portland, and they're all like, there's a real big pool of talented people here.
Yeah.
And
So true. Yeah, and some of the hardest working people you'll ever meet, because people really care. You know, it's not just another thing on their list of things to do. It's like, you know, the projects that we invest our time in they matter, you know.
And the community really came together for us. Like we had so many donations come to us during this whole process. Just like set pieces and props and money in the Kickstarter, and it's just an amazing place.
do you have a social media accounts? I know you have a Brain That Wouldn't Die Facebook account. If people want to check that out and follow that, is there Twitter and Instagram as well?
Yeah, and I am such an old man. I'm gonna have to look up what these are. It's
just the Brain That Wouldn't Die on Instagram.
Brain That Wouldn't Die for Facebook. Instagram, it's Brain
Wouldn't Die.
Brain Wouldn't Die for Instagram.
Wouldn't die.
And I can't remember the Twitter. I don't ever use it. We'll build that up.
Awesome.
And Rachel, is there a place that we can follow your works?
Oh, yes. I'm on Instagram and all of the social media handles. But yeah, just I don't know. Yes.
Sorry
you
to
can
catch
see me in
you off
Small Bits and 911 in Midway and other movies and things.
You were great in that, by the
Killing
way.
it.
I got such a huge kick out of seeing you in it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, and she's on the poster. Don't forget about that.
No, that's fake. That's not real.
Oh my gosh! Oh, someone did comment in the chat box, and I agree that your maniacal laughter was one of the best parts of the film.
For
It's
sure.
not funny.
Maniacally laughing. Thank you.
Did you have to practice that? I'm not
I
kidding.
don't know. I don't remember. We did it a lot. I feel like we did it a lot.
We did do it a lot. There's definitely takes where you start losing your voice. Like,
Oh, no.
Yeah.
but yeah.
What was one of my favorite ones was that I was supposed to try to get the tape off of my mouth. And that was just a very long take.
I remember that.
And Jason, how about you? Where can we follow your work?
Well, I'm very inept with the social media stuff. I just only have Facebook and Instagram. But anything that I've ever done or anything that I've been part of, you can pretty much find on Facebook. Got quite a bit of stuff on Google for different movies, like Kings of Horror. Got a film on that. Different things like that. But it's basically just Facebook and Instagram.
Got a Netflix project you did.
Oh yeah, there's
right?
a Netflix project I did as well. It's called Haunted. Season 1, episode 1.
Nice. Check it out.
Yeah.
I know Mia's on Facebook because I looked her up.
Be sure to catch Patrick in Escaping Freedom.
Oh,
yeah.
His glorious beard is back. That is quite good. You're a hell of an actor, good. Patrick.
You're very kind. Thank you.
Now, if I had a chin like Patrick's, I wouldn't have a beard.
That's why I have one.
There's just nothing. There's nothing.
There's nothing under that hair. It's just
not fair.
Basketball.
Women can't create extensions on their face.
We have to get like chin implants.
Well, it's to balance out the fact that we go bald. You guys don't do that, you know.
Yeah.
Some of us do.
There are ways around it.
So where can we follow you, Mia, if people want to follow your works?
My works are also fairly diverse. I am on Instagram. Mia Allen is it's actually not my, you might have to do some scrolling to find me, but an easier way might be my website. It's just miaallen.com.
Cool.
It's kind of a hub for all that stuff.
Same question for Patrick.
Patrick.
I'm just on everything: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Is that what the question was? Sorry.
Yeah.
Usual places.
Cool.
Well, Hank, Mia, Derek, Rachel, Jason, Patrick, thank you so much for joining us for this amazing in-depth Q&A. I feel like I know so much more about the film now, and I can't wait to watch it again.
Yeah.
And I hope everyone out there, people can watch it until 1 p.m. tomorrow. So
Do it.
yeah, they
Yeah.
can take it all in again and look for all those exciting tidbits that we've just learned about. And
Thank you, Gwen and
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you so much. This has been a real treat.
You
Yeah,
guys.
thank you guys so much.
All right.
Completely our pleasure. You know, we do this because we love movies and we love horror movies, and so it's all our pleasure that you were able to take part in this. And I think it's really important too that there's, you know, that we've all been able to kind of come together in this way in a very isolating time, you know, to both show our movies, you know, as filmmakers, and to for people stuck at home to be able to watch them and not just depend on whatever is in their Netflix queue, you know, whatever bullshit the mainstream, you know, movie industry creates, you know, because this stuff is really important. This kind of independent filmmaking is really, that's where it's at. It's the heart of filmmaking.
Mhm.
Definitely.
True.
Thank
Thank
you.
you guys.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you for championing
Take
that.
us out, Brian.
All right, I'm going to take us out. Don't go anywhere. We're going to kill the broadcast. And for everybody out there watching us, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hope we'll see you next time. Maybe in person. We'll see.
Yeah.
That would be nice.
Love you all.